Alright, so you're back here on Keep It Real Boxing. This is Cypher Box. Okay, so it's been a bit of a crazy week this week when it comes to boxing. Loads of news has come out. So with this video, I'm going to talk about Jermall Charlo versus Triple G a little bit later on down the line of the video. Talk about HBO, you know, who's looking to sign up Canelo and Alvarez now that they're free agents and stuff like that. But I thought the best place to start with this video would be with this tweet. So the WBC have now at their 56th convention in Kiev have decided to allow Canelo Alvarez to have a voluntary defense this year, and they've also ordered and mandated that Jermall Charlo will fight Triple G, and the winner will become Canelo Alvarez's WBC mandatory challenger. Now, I'm not going to lie, I am critical of this decision, and simply because I think Jermall Charlo has been messed about, basically. Far as I remember, when he fought, was it Hugo Centennial, that was the final eliminator for the WBC mandatory position. Now, he was supposed to fight Triple G next, although the fight wasn't ordered, of course. That is what should have taken place next. Obviously, Triple G fought Canelo last year in September, and then it was supposed to be Jermall Charlo again, but Jermall Charlo was asked to step aside again, and the fight was supposed to take place in May. The fight didn't take place in May because obviously Canelo Alvarez failed a drug test, and then Jermall Charlo was politely asked to step aside again and wait, because obviously they wanted to make the rematch in September. So obviously now the fight in September has taken place, in which Canelo Alvarez won. You would think Jermall Charlo would get his shot. Now, there was rumours and whispers that Canelo Alvarez was going to make a voluntary defence, wanted to make a voluntary defence in December, and we all thought it was going to be David Lemieux. However, Canelo Alvarez put this tweet out yesterday that he would be facing the UK's very own Rocky Fielding. Yeah, Rocky Fielding, you heard me right. Rocky Fielding, who recently won the regular version of the WBA's super middleweight title. 168 pounds. Canelo is going up to 168 pounds to challenge Rocky Fielding. In the words of Eddie Hearn, what the is going on? Now, here's my train of thought when it comes to all of this. Is either one, Canelo Alvarez is genuinely trying to, you know, daring to be great and all of that, and step up to 168 and pick up another world title in another weight class. Or Rocky Fielding is getting paid very handsomely and is willing to sell his belt. 3, this is the start of Canelo Alvarez, hopefully, you know, maybe ducking Jermall Charlo, if Jermall Charlo beats Triple G, of course. So he doesn't have to face him. And of course, Eddie Hearn is sacrificing one of his matchroom lambs in order to sign Canelo to Dazn. Now, if Canelo Alvarez goes up to 168 and beats Rocky Fielding, and I think he does, I think this is a mismatch. I think Canelo Alvarez is going to smash Rocky Fielding, personally, you know, and I'm pretty sure most of you out there would agree with me on that one, okay? And if Canelo Alvarez doesn't come back down to middleweight to face the winner of Jermall Charlo and Triple G, then I'm going to call it how I see it, which is that is a duck. Because if I'm honest with you, I don't think either Canelo Alvarez or Triple G, in all honesty, want to face Jermall Charlo. We know Triple G doesn't want to. Yeah, he's not happy, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, because he put out, there was an article in boxingscene.com, and it was interesting what Tom Loeffler had to say. But Canelo, Triple G, let's face it, ever since Jermall Charlo has found himself in that mandatory position for the WBC belt, him and Abel Sanchez, especially Abel Sanchez, have made nothing but excuses as to why, you know, they don't want, you know, why Jermall Charlo doesn't deserve a shot at the WBC middleweight title and Triple G. The whole, oh, what has he done? Who has he fought? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm going to say this, yeah? You didn't seem to have a problem pre-Kell Brook. meaning all the opponents that Triple G had fought before Kell Brook were all, at best, C-class fighters. To be honest with you, a couple of them were probably C-class fighters, the rest of them were all D's and E's. But you didn't have a problem then. But then now you suddenly have a problem fighting Jermall Charlo. And this brings me to my next point, and I'm going to show you the screenshot of Tom Loeffler's comments, or the quote that I took from BoxingScene.com, where, they're not very happy with the WBC's decision in terms of ordering and mandating a final eliminator fight between Jermall Charlo and Triple G, because what they were expecting was that the WBC at the WBC convention would have voted for an immediate rematch with Canelo Alvarez, giving us a trilogy. But that hasn't gone that way, because at the end of the day, how much longer can you keep making Jermall Charlo wait? So they had to make that fight between Triple G and Jermall Charlo. Golovkin feels left out, and I'm very sorry about that. I just read a message from him. You have to understand that boxing is a stage. If the fight is very good, then another is demanded. But they had a war, and I do not think it's something that should happen immediately. There was a message from Tom Loeffler, from his promoter. The message is not negative, simply that they expected that we would have voted for a direct rematch, Suleiman told ESPN Deportes. And yeah, you could probably argue that, Triple G deserved a rematch because it was a close fight. Of course, I understand that. But at the same time, I get a feeling that they don't want to fight Jermall Charlo. Because before the first fight against Canelo Alvarez, they were looking to talk their way out of that fight as much as they possibly could. They were like, if the WBC order it, then of course we'll have to take it. But, otherwise we're not going to give Jermall Charlo a fight because, what has he done in the middleweight division? Who has he fought? What has he done in his career? And all that kind of stuff that comes out when, a team doesn't want to face a certain fighter. So I think, although part of it is that they probably wanted a rematch, I think a big chunk of it is that they don't want to get in a ring with Jermall Charlo. That's just my personal opinion. And it'll be interesting to see whether we actually see the fight between Charlo and Triple G. Now on to Canelo Alvarez. Now, Canelo Alvarez is going up. He's not fighting David Lemieux. He's moving up to, obviously, 168 pounds. He's going to take on Rocky Fielding, like I said earlier on in the video. But this also looks like a little chess move as well, in my opinion. If Triple G was to beat Charlo, I think we'll see Canelo back at middleweight. Yeah? Because that's a big money fight again, the third fight. So he probably would come back down for that. But what's going to be interesting is if Jermall Charlo beats Triple G, will Canelo Alvarez come back to middleweight and face his mandatory challenger, which in that case would be Jermall Charlo, if that makes sense. That's what's interesting to me. That's what I want to see. Yeah? Whether Canelo Alvarez will come back down to middleweight or not. And obviously the answer to that question is, I don't know yet. I have to wait and see. But of course, that is dependent on Jermall Charlo beating Triple G, or if that fight ever takes place, in all honesty. Because I think Triple G and his team will try and do whatever they can to get out of that fight personally. And remember, if Canelo Alvarez doesn't come back down to middleweight, should Jermall Charlo beat Triple G in their final eliminator, I will be calling it out as a duck. You know what I'm like on this channel, yeah? I don't have favourite fighters. Yeah, I'm a fan of the sport. I don't care about having favourite fighters and like other channels that you get out there who have an agenda, etc. and stuff like that. It's not my style. I just keep it real. Believe me, I will be all over Canelo if that should happen. Now let's get back to Rocky Fielding facing Canelo Alvarez. Alright, so I touched a little bit here on Eddie Hearn. And I personally think Eddie Hearn once again is willing to sacrifice one of his matchroom lambs for the slaughter to sign a big name star to Dazn. Now, Eddie Hearn in a recent interview just said that, there's a big chance that Canelo Alvarez versus Rocky Fielding could happen on Dazn. Yeah? But Oscar De La Hoya is also still talking to HBO about putting Canelo Alvarez on Rocky Fielding and putting Canelo Alvarez on HBO one last time when it comes to the December 15th date. So a little bit of me thinks that Eddie Hearn is willing to sacrifice Rocky Fielding in order to get that signature from Canelo Alvarez. There's no secret, he's been talking about it for weeks now. He wants Canelo Alvarez, he wants Triple G too. Okay, he needs a big name star on the Dazn platform to really get it to launch off. We know that as well. And I think at some point he's gonna have to fork out some serious money to get Canelo Alvarez or even Triple G onto his platform. I'm talking about big money. Remember, Canelo Alvarez, especially Canelo Alvarez, he is the #1 pay-per-view superstar in the US. So you can't offer him some measly 10 million contract, 20 million contract. I'm not saying that kind of money is measly, but in terms of Canelo Alvarez and what he earns, it is. All right? You're going to have to offer him a real big contract. You got $1 billion apparently, but I'm not seeing Eddie Hearn flash it enough. I don't know how much he can spend, etc. I don't know how it works with him in the zone, but he's going to have to fork out some money, some serious money, superstar level money. Yeah? To get Canelo Alvarez. But at the same time, I feel like he's going to try and get Canelo Alvarez for this one fight against Rocky Fielding, just to show Canelo Alvarez what he can do for them, what DAZN can do for them, what Matchroom USA can do for them. Do you know what I mean? Show off, you know, what they've got in their arsenal, should I say? Yeah, in terms of fight promotion, etc. But remember, DAZN don't do pay-per-view. It's a $10 a month subscription fee. That's it. That's all you pay. So even if they offered Canelo Alvarez a massive contract in terms of, you know, guaranteed money for, you know, 3 fights, 4 fights, whatever it is, how are they going to make that money back is the real question. You know, are there going to be a lot of people subscribing to the channel, etc., to be able to make that money back? Who knows? I don't know how it works, but it's a little bit of food for thought. But that's where I think Eddie Hearn's going with all of this, is that he wants to sign a big name star. He's made it no secret he wants Canelo and Triple G now that they are free agents. And, you know, this is a great opportunity for him to try and do that. I just hope Rocky Fielding's getting paid well for this. Because if you're going to take this sort of fight against Canelo Alvarez, I hope he's getting paid big money for this. I really do. That's all I'm going to say when it comes to Rocky Fielding. Now, as you have heard, HBO, after 45 years, have thrown in the towel. They will no longer be broadcasting boxing on their platform. Yeah? The last few fights will be happening in December, and that is it. They are out of boxing, right? And to be honest with you, I'm not surprised, but I'll talk about that at the end of the video. However, that does mean that they have fighters that were on HBO who are now free agents in terms of their broadcasting deals. And the 2 top names, of course, are Canelo Alvarez and Triple G. So let's start with Bob Arum and what Bob Arum had to say, right? Bob Arum has basically turned around and said that he wants to sign Triple G to ESPN and believes that Triple G belongs on ESPN. Now, when it came to Canelo Alvarez, Bob Arum was a little bit different in terms of what he had to say. He said, if Golden Boy want to talk and make a deal, they know how to contact us. And they know, and Oscar De La Hoya knows how to get hold of me. Okay, so you got to remember, some of these promoters have a bit of bad blood between them. Oscar and Bob Arum, you know, probably haven't got the greatest relationship. So hence why Bob's kind of probably being that way. But he definitely has said he wants to sign Triple G to ESPN. And if I'm honest with you, I personally believe that's where Triple G will end up. I don't think he'll end up on DAZN. I definitely don't think he'll end up on Showtime. And to be fair, ESPN, their ESPN app, from what I understand, has 1 million subscribers to it. Is a great platform for Triple G. You know, when you've got that many subscribers already, it will only grow with a name like Triple G being added to it. But not only that, when you think about it, when you want to avoid fighters and stuff like that, you know, and you want to stay away from Jermall Charlo, you know, that would probably be the best route, in all honesty, right? As I've been talking about earlier on in this video. So that's where Bob Arum and ESPN stand in terms of Canelo Alvarez and Triple G. But I don't know whether Oscar De La Hoya would probably turn to ESPN and put Canelo on ESPN and their $4.99 app. That's just my personal opinion. When it comes to Canelo Alvarez, I think Oscar De La Hoya would probably reluctantly, but will probably end up going to Showtime. Steven Espinoza has recently come out saying that we're not talking in the press too much about this. We've gone directly to Golden Boy and said we are interested in signing Canelo Alvarez. We have a pay-per-view platform here, and remember, pay-per-views out in America start at about $60 to $70 and they range up to $100. So when you think about a $4.99 app and then getting a guaranteed purse from somewhere like ESPN against pay-per-view numbers, and if you could do 1 million or 1,000,005 pay-per-views, that's a lot more money at the end of the day. So it depends which one is gonna work out to be, more financially lucrative, not just for Canelo Alvarez, but for Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions. And I think he will most likely, because of the past relationship as well, even though it ended a little bitterly between Oscar De La Hoya, Showtime, and then of course Al Heyman as well. At the same time, they do know Canelo better than Bob Arum and ESPN, and definitely better than Eddie Hearn and Dazn. So I'm not saying this is just my opinion. I think Canelo will probably end up on Showtime, but again, you're not guaranteed anything in this sport, so who knows what's going to happen next. And like I've already said, when it comes to Dazn, yeah, Canelo Alvarez and Triple G could end up on Dazn, but Eddie Hearn's going to have to start forking out some cash, because at the moment I haven't seen him really splash any cash on any fighters. Seriously, he hasn't. And I feel, because when you're entering a new market like Eddie Hearn's trying to, he's going to probably have to pay above the odds in order to entice fighters, well-known and popular fighters, onto his platform, Dazn. Okay? He's going to have to. And if he's really going to want Canelo Alvarez, especially Canelo Alvarez, who makes the kind of money he does, the #1 pay-per-view US star out in America, you're going to have to fork out some money for him. Whether he has the, alright, he says he's got this $1 billion budget, but whether he can spend a large chunk of that on Canelo Alvarez is another story altogether. But then if you're going to pay Canelo Alvarez that kind of money, I'm pretty sure Triple G is going to then start demanding that kind of money, or close to that kind of money as well. So how much is that going to cost Dazn? And then they got to look at what's the rate of return. What are they projecting in terms of what's going to be the rate of return in terms of profitability? Yeah. Whereas ESPN are already an established, and from what I understand, ESPN are probably the #1 sports network out in America. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyone from America, correct me if I'm wrong, of course, please. But that's what I understand. So they've already got the financial clout to kind of pay the likes of Triple G guaranteed money now to get them on their platform, and even Canelo Alvarez if they wanted to. But that's if Golden Boy and Oscar De La Hoya want to put Canelo on ESPN. But like I said, I think he's going to end up going on Showtime personally, because of the pay-per-view platform that's still there. But we'll have to wait and see what Eddie Hearn can conjure up in order to get these two names onto his Dazn platform. But it's definitely going to be interesting, there's no doubt about that. Remember what I already said about ESPN, and this applies to Showtime as well. They already have the subscribers. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Eddie Hearn's still trying to get those subscribers. Yeah? So Top Rank and ESPN and Showtime, who already have that subscriber base, where they have a large number of subscribers to their platforms. So you're going to feel a bit more secure as a fighter fighting on those platforms than you probably will be on Dazn. I'm not saying Eddie Hearn can't do it. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just think that Eddie Hearn's going to have to fork out some serious cash. But at the same time, Dazn are going to want some guarantees from Eddie Hearn in terms of what kind of money they're going to make back on that investment, if that makes sense. That's just the way I see it. And finally, on to HBO. HBO are, in terms of boxing, are out of business. Yeah, they are throwing in the towel. They are giving up on boxing, on being a boxing broadcaster. They've been doing it for 45 years. They've had some of the biggest fights in history on HBO, of course. There's quite a nostalgic feel when it comes to this topic from a lot of people. Yeah, me, I'm not so, emotionally attached. Yeah, I'm from the UK, but don't get me wrong, I've watched a lot of HBO over YouTube and DVDs and videos over the years, VHS, etc. And, although they've had big fights and big platforms, etc., I'm going to honestly tell you I am not surprised at this. Yeah, this is something that's been coming for a long, long time. And am I sad to see him go? No, and I'm going to tell you why. Because, let's be honest, let's start with the commentary. Jim Lampley and even Larry Merchant before he retired, the amount of biased commentary we used to hear from those guys was unbelievable. Yeah, to certain fighters, etc. Yeah, all right. Their agenda, for example, in the last few years, backing all the Eastern European fighters, and there's nothing wrong with that, don't get me wrong, but there was no real investment in homegrown American talent. Let's be honest. Yeah, and considering you're a US broadcaster in America, you're catering to the American public, but yet you're not investing in any sort of US based fighters. You're investing in fighters from other countries. So that probably isn't going to help you in the long run as well. But the biased commentary, you used to see Jim Lampley, do you remember the whole bang, bang, bang? Or was it Manny Pacquiao he did that with? And Manny Pacquiao never landed a punch. But yet, this is the sort of thing I'm talking about. Also, I'm going to be honest, there's been cultural biases as well. Let's be honest about this. HBO never really gave black American fighters the credit they deserved. I'm going to be honest about it. Yeah, it's clear to see if people aren't going to like what I'm saying, but I can't care less. I'm going to tell you the truth. Yeah, we know that for a fact. The likes of Floyd, Mayweather, you even go back and look at Lennox Lewis when he beat Vitaly Klitschko, how Larry Merchant approached the interview with Lennox Lewis after the fight, very aggressive and, kind of challenging him on the things that he said in the build up to the fight about Vitaly Klitschko and stuff like that. We've seen it across the board, Rigondeaux, what they did to Rigondeaux as well. So you go back and watch Rigondeaux before he fought Nonito Donaire. I remember seeing Jim Lampley praising Rigondeaux, saying that he wanted to see Rigondeaux fight again. He was impressed by Rigondeaux. And then when Rigondeaux beat Nonito Donaire, suddenly the agenda changed. And suddenly, Rigondeaux's boring. He's the worst boxer on the planet. He's not pound for pound, etc., etc. All this sort of stuff. And I'm talking back then, of course. So you could tell there were clear agendas, clear biased agendas that they had going on. And I think people just got sick of it. I think a lot of people got sick of it and a lot of people stopped tuning in. You look at their pay-per-view numbers over the last few years, haven't been great. They've really relied on Canelo Alvarez, I suppose, for that, in a sense. Triple G, against against David Lemieux did 153,000 pay-per-view buys. Against Daniel Jacobs did only 170,000 pay-per-view buys. Where was the promotion? Where was the investment? Where was the backing? Where was the building of Triple G? If you're going to invest in a fighter from another country, you got to back him and invest in him, yeah, to get those pay-per-view numbers and stuff like that. You look at the Andre Ward versus Sergey Kovalev fight. That fight, those two fights together did not do well. Didn't do high numbers in terms of pay-per-view buys either. So, end of the day, all I can say, it's HBO's own fault if they were no longer able to compete in the sport of boxing. And am I going to be sad to see him go? Probably not. You look at Max Kellerman as well. Max Kellerman used to be, out of all three, out of Lampley, Larry Merchant, Max Kellerman at the years ago was probably one of the most more honest out of the three in terms of his opinion when it came to the sport. And then later on, after the Manny Pacquiao fight, Manny Pacquiao gets Floyd Mayweather fight, suddenly Max Kellerman started taking the same stance as Lampley and Merchant. So it's like, what do you expect? People don't want to keep hearing that, so they end up stop watching, right? So in my opinion, you know, I'm not sad to see him go. Yeah, I get it. They've had all this history and stuff like that. You know, maybe people out in America feel a little bit differently because obviously we watch on Sky here and Box Nation and all that sort of stuff, you know, but I have watched enough fights, you know, with HBO commentary to know what I'm kind of probably talking about a little bit here. And that's what I've always seen when it comes to HBO. I've seen clear bias and clearly they've always had an agenda. And now it's got to that point where I feel maybe people are sick and tired of it and not been tuning in. And therefore, you know, now it's put them in a position where they thought, you know what, this is not even worth it anymore. And now the competition is so big now in America. You've got, you know, Al Heyman and his Fox Sports deal with Fox Sports, you know, his relationship with Showtime as well. You've got Bob Arum stepping up things, you know, with ESPN. You've got Eddie Hearn who's entered the market, you know, with Dazn. And that's another thing as well. You know, even Bob Arum knew the way HBO were going, because I can't remember what fight it was, but HBO were not willing to show Manny Pacquiao's fight on pay-per-view or on HBO. I can't remember what fight it was years ago. And that's what led Bob Arum to go to ESPN to put Manny Pacquiao's fight on ESPN, if I remember right. And then after that, Bob Arum was like, I'm going to start doing all my business with ESPN, forget HBO. So they've kind of done it to themselves, if I'm honest with you. And I'm not really that sad to see him go. Look, remember, this is just all my opinion, yeah, of what I think is going on with all these topics and all these subjects that I spoke about in this video. Let me know what you think. As always, guys, like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, this is Cypherbox reminding you to keep it real.